Abandoned at the altar, she married an elderly beggar. What she discovered was surreal. The church bells rang in joy, echoing through the crisp morning air. White roses lined the aisle, sunlight filtered through stained glass, and the fragrance of jasmine hung in the air like a promise. Everything was perfect. Except for one thing, the groom never came. Emma stood at the altar, her white dress shimmering like a dream she could no longer believe in. Her hands trembled as the priest whispered, "Maybe he's running late." But deep down, she knew. The silence said it all. Minutes turned to hours. The whispers began. Her mother wept quietly in the front pew. Her father's face hardened with anger. And when the best man finally arrived, alone, with eyes full of guilt, Emma's heart broke with a single, brutal sentence. "He's gone, Emma. He left, he said he can't do this." The world around her blurred. The decorations, the music, the people, all of it faded into a hollow hum. She could feel the pity in their eyes, the sting of humiliation burning her soul. She walked out of the church barefoot, her veil dragging behind her, as the perfect white wedding dissolved into heartbreak and disbelief. A bride with no groom. Hours later, Emma found herself sitting on a park bench, still in her wedding dress, mascara smudged down her cheeks. Children stared. Strangers whispered. Her phone buzzed endlessly with messages of sympathy, apology, gossip. But she didn't reply. She had built her entire life around this day. The man she thought she knew, Ethan, was supposed to be her forever. They had planned their future, a home by the lake, a dog, children. And now, in a single cowardly act, he had taken it all away. The sky darkened, and a soft drizzle began to fall. Emma didn't move. She didn't care that her dress was soaking, or that her makeup had melted away. That's when she heard a voice, low, raspy, and kind. "Miss. You shouldn't sit here like that. You'll catch a cold." She turned. Beside the bench stood an old man, clothes tattered, beard gray and unkempt, his eyes tired yet strangely gentle. He held a torn umbrella that barely kept him dry. Emma blinked at him, half annoyed, half lost. "I don't care," she muttered. The old man nodded slowly. "I know that feeling," he said softly. "Sometimes, the heart hurts so much, the rain feels like nothing." Something in his voice stopped her. It wasn't pity, it was understanding. The stranger under the umbrella. They sat in silence for a while. He didn't ask her name, or why she was dressed like a bride. He didn't stare or judge, he just sat beside her, quietly holding the umbrella so the rain wouldn't hit her face. Finally, she spoke. "Do you know what it feels like to be left, when you thought someone loved you?" He smiled faintly, revealing missing teeth. "Yes, I do." She looked at him, really looked. His clothes were worn, but his posture had dignity. His eyes, though tired, carried stories. "Who are you?" she asked. "Just a man who once loved and lost," he replied. And then realized, maybe losing was a blessing I didn't understand. They talked until nightfall. He told her about his younger days, how he'd been a carpenter once, how he had a wife who died young, and how life had slowly stripped away everything he owned. "But it never took my heart," he said, tapping his chest. "Because love, real love, doesn't come from what we have. It comes from what we give." Those words struck her deeply. Before leaving, she asked his name. "Thomas," he said. Just Thomas. The proposal that shocked everyone. Days passed. The story of the abandoned bride spread across the town. Emma became the subject of gossip and sympathy, the woman left at the altar. But one morning, as she walked to the bakery, she saw Thomas again. He was sitting near the fountain, feeding crumbs to pigeons. She smiled, genuinely for the first time in days. "Still sharing your breakfast, I see." He chuckled. "They're hungry. We all are, in some way. They talked again. And again. What began as random meetings turned into daily conversations. Emma started bringing him food, sometimes coffee, sometimes just company. Each day, he told her something profound, about kindness, loss, forgiveness, and finding beauty in broken things. He became her anchor when the world mocked her. Then one afternoon, out of the blue, she said, half laughing, maybe I should just marry someone like you, Thomas. Someone who won't leave. To her surprise, he looked her straight in the eyes and said, then marry me. She froze. What? Marry me, he said simply, without irony. You wanted someone who won't leave. I may not have a home, or money, but I'll never walk away. She laughed, at first. But the more she looked at him, the more her heart softened. His proposal wasn't a joke, it was the purest act of sincerity she had ever seen. And maybe, just maybe, that's what she needed, a heart that stayed. A wedding no one understood. When Emma announced her decision to marry Thomas, her family was horrified. Have you lost your mind? Her mother cried. You're marrying a beggar. Her father slammed his fist on the table. You're humiliating us again. But Emma stood firm. You taught me love matters more than money. Thomas gave me kindness when I had nothing left. That's love. No one came to the wedding. It was held in the small park where they first met, under the same tree, with the same broken umbrella. A local priest, moved by their story, agreed to officiate. Thomas wore a clean shirt Emma bought from a thrift store. Emma wore a simple white dress. No decorations, no guests, no cameras. Just two hearts choosing each other. When the priest asked, do you, Emma, take Thomas, she smiled through tears and said, I already have. And when Thomas placed a paper ring around her finger, he whispered, you gave me dignity again. I'll spend the rest of my life earning your love. A life unexpected. They rented a small room above an old bookstore. Thomas began working again, repairing furniture for neighbors. His hands, though old, crafted beauty with care. Emma found work as a teacher, her students loved her. Slowly, they built a humble, peaceful life. They laughed, cooked together, and watched sunsets from their window. For the first time in her life, Emma felt safe. Thomas had a way of turning the simplest moments into poetry, a cup of tea, a walk in the rain, a song hummed under his breath. He never complained about age or pain. He only said, every wrinkle has a memory. I'd rather have a face full of stories than one that's forgotten how to smile. Years passed. Emma stopped being the abandoned bride. She became the woman who married for love, real love. The secret. One day, while cleaning, Emma found an old wooden box hidden beneath the floorboard. Inside was a photograph of a younger Thomas. Clean-shaven, in a suit, standing in front of a grand house. Beside it lay a Medal of Honor and a letter addressed to Thomas Bennett. Her heart raced. She ran to him, trembling. Thomas, what is this? He sighed, sitting down slowly. It's a part of my life I never wanted to talk about. He told her everything. Years ago, he had been a soldier, decorated, respected, and married to a woman named Claire. When she fell ill, he spent everything on her treatment. After she passed, he couldn't bear the pain. He sold their home, gave away his savings to hospitals that couldn't help her, and wandered, broken, lost, a ghost of himself. I stopped caring about living, he said quietly. Until the day I saw a young woman in a wedding dress crying in the rain. I thought, maybe God was giving me one last reason to feel again. Emma's eyes filled with tears. He wasn't just a beggar. He was a man who had once given everything for love, and found it again in her. The last promise. Years later, Thomas grew frail. His hands shook when he carved wood, and his cough deepened. Emma begged him to see a doctor, but he always smiled, I'm fine, love. Just tired. One winter night, as the snow fell softly outside, he held her hand and said, "If tomorrow I'm not here, promise me you'll keep helping people who feel forgotten. Because love doesn't die, it just changes form." She wept. "Don't talk like that." He smiled, the same warm, gentle smile she saw that first day under the umbrella. "I was never your savior, Emma. You were mine." He passed away in his sleep that night, peacefully, holding her hand. What she discovered was surreal. Months later, Emma received a letter from a law firm. Confused, she opened it. Inside was a document, Thomas Bennett's will. He had left her everything, not just the small savings they had, but a deed to a countryside cottage that once belonged to his family. The lawyer explained that Thomas had inherited it decades ago but never used it. He had quietly arranged for it to go to her, the woman who gave me back my name. Emma traveled to the cottage. It stood beside a lake, surrounded by wildflowers, serene and timeless. On the porch was a small wooden sign Thomas must have made before his death. It read, "Love is not about who stays at the altar, it's about who stays when life falls apart." She fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. At that moment, she realized the surreal truth: she had been abandoned once, but found a love purer than anything she could have imagined. Epilogue: The lesson of two lives. Years later, Emma turned the cottage into a shelter, Thomas Haven, for the homeless and abandoned. She dedicated her life to helping those who had been left behind, just like she once was. Every wall of the cottage carried warmth, every meal served carried love. And at the entrance hung a framed photo of Thomas, smiling in his old coat, holding that broken umbrella. Whenever someone asked about him, Emma would smile and say, "He wasn't rich in money. But he was the wealthiest man I ever knew." And every night, as she stood by the window watching the stars, she whispered, "You kept your promise, Thomas. You never left." Moral: sometimes the person who seems to have nothing gives us everything. Love isn't found in perfection, it's found in compassion, sacrifice, and the courage to stay when others walk away.